back is Dorsey to throw. And he throws it in the end zone.
To the races, can I catch it?
The Ohio State of Mind podcast, hosted by Josh Kingdom and Chris Rowe.
Wheel in the sky keeps on turning.
I don't know where I'll be tomorrow, but tonight, the 3rd of March, it is 9 p.m. on the East Coast, 6 p.m. here on the West Coast. It is the Ohio State of Mind podcast. As always, I am Chris. Josh, here as always, can't get rid of him. Josh, we have a very special guest. Why don't you go ahead and do an introduction for me, please, and thank you.
Yeah, man, we got Colby Dant joining us, host of the College Experience podcast, where he covers college football, college basketball, and then you got Noah Beanick covering college baseball. Not gonna lie, I don't listen to baseball, but not only do you cover that, but you do the UFL gambling podcast, the CFL gambling podcast. You were doing the Stadium Heads podcast. The busiest man in podcasting right now, Colby. I want to first of all, before we start, I want to thank you for the Xbox. Thank you for the new TV, because my man, I check it every day for the UFL gambling podcast. God bless you. God bless you for what you did in the UFL gambling podcast, and you kill it in the college football gambling podcast too. You absolutely kill it. You're very honest with your takes. You know the 1AA shit I love. I mean, dude, you covered it all, man. You covered it all, dude. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, well, thank you, buddy. I'm chasing that Rogan money. It hasn't came yet, but I'm chasing it still. I need to start talking about UFOs in Ohio Stadium or something, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right, dude. That's right, dude. Well, speaking of Ohio, well, we'll get to that later. We'll get to that later, Chris. But Chris, how do you want to start this thing off, brother?
We'll start it off. Billy Tuesday, thanks for coming here on a Monday. How are you? Hope you're doing well. That's right, the guy that doesn't like Ohio State. Hey guys, is that a rumor that you're gonna have to debunk tonight, Colby, or not?
Well, I mean, I guess I could speak passionately on the fact that so I had no problem with Ohio State, but I do have one close friend that is such an Ohio State fan that at times it makes me he does get under my skin sometimes. So maybe they catch me on those days, but no, I would say that I there's a lot more that I dislike than Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State is classic football, but I guess I was. You know what? I bet you that's a take on the COVID season. Because I thought it was kind of ridiculous, personally.
I'm trying to think the top 5. If I had to rank the top 5 schools you hate, God, Ohio State's definitely up there. Texas is up there.
Texas is number 1 by far. By far, no one is close to Texas to me.
Wow.
They're just like. They're the girlfriend that's never happy. It doesn't matter what you do, they're gonna bitch and moan. Can I curse? I don't know if I can curse on your beautiful podcast. But it's just no matter what you do, they're gonna be if anything, like I like Ohio State for wanting to play football during COVID. I just thought, how can? Yeah, I mean, my logic was like, how can we just take a 4 or 5 game sample size? I know Michigan was little bitches and canceled you guys, but I just thought like It just kind of took the curtain down on what really happens with college football, because I was like, wait, we got other teams that played like 10, 11 games. What are we doing here?
Well, I will say, because I was okay. So for 2 things there, that nothing annoys me more as an Ohio State fan than the Michigan X accounts that count down how many days since Michigan's lost to Ohio State, because it's like, dude, you can't count the 2020 years. Like, I'll give it to you. We've gotten our ass, Ohio State's gotten their ass kicked the last 4 years. I don't have an excuse, but you can't count 2020. Yeah. That's on you, dude. That's on you. Because
you ducked it, and that was on some garbage, I believe.
Yeah, man.
I don't believe that was legit. I don't believe that they really had it. I think they're just like, no, we're terrible this year. Let's not play this game.
Yeah. And that Ohio State team, I was watching the Ohio State versus Clemson game where Justin Fields threw for like 6 touchdowns. Dude, I know they only played 6 games. First of all, I don't think that's their fault. And that is one of the most talented Ohio State teams. If it wasn't for
they probably would have been in, man. It's a hard sell when there's other teams. And I'm not even saying Ohio State. Anybody in the Big Ten that year, when you're comparing the resume, like I thought they propped up Indiana a little bit unfairly, in my opinion, to help bolster Ohio State's strength of schedule. I think that was solely the logic of that. And I'm like, man, you look over at the ACC and Big 12 and SEC, certain teams played 10, 11 games. Like I think, and I'm no A&M fan either, but I was like, damn, A&M has played double the sample size and they're getting shafted. Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. I will, the Indiana team, I will say that was the Michael Penix year, but you're right. They were definitely propped up, but it's crazy. We're going to look back. I'm going to, my son, eventually we're going to watch that game together and he's going to be like, why are they wearing masks? And why are there 3 people in the stands? And I'm going to have to explain the craziness that was that season. And it's absolutely wild. But since we're down the history rabbit hole, Chris, is this a good time to bring up the 1990 recruiting class? Colby, I didn't want to waste your time with this, but being a football historian, I know that you are, I was, dabbling a little bit in one of those late nights, reading some old magazines and Googling shit. You know what I mean? And can I interest you in some 1990 recruiting class information?
100%. Okay. I love this. Let's go.
Now, before you go, Daddy's got a graphic prepared. Do you want it?
Do you want it? Well, let's do a guess. Can we do a guessing game first?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So Colby, all right. Here I'm going to give you 3 quarterbacks in the 1990 recruiting class. Put them in order. Okay. Chris Winkie. What's that? 1990 recruiting class?
And he won the Natty in what, 99?
2000. He won the Heisman
2000. Yeah, 2000. Yeah.
He was a 5-star recruit in the 1990 recruiting class. Drew Bledsoe. Okay. Or Joe Pickens. I'm gonna rank those.
I mean, I think that's pretty obvious right there. Because Winkie, he made the NFL for a decent amount of years. I feel like wasn't he on the Panthers for like at least 4 or 5 years? Maybe am I full of shit? Yeah. I mean, obviously you gotta have Drew number 1. I mean, I will say this. I wonder how he'd be in this era.
How do you think they were rated? I
thought you were saying okay, because I was like, this is an easy one. Okay,
it's harder.
Oh, I'm gonna say Winkie 1 though, because but I don't know, because would you go play baseball if you're number 1? I'll say Bledsoe's last because he went to Wazoo. I feel like Wazoo's not going to get that home run, guy most times, unless for all I know his family lineage went there or something. But yeah. So I'll go. Wait. So it was Winkie. Who was the other one?
Joe Pickens.
Yeah, Pickens got to be number 1. Pickens got to be number 1. Yeah.
So you nailed it. So Joe Pickens was 1. Chris Winkie was 2. Not only was Joe Pickens the number 1 quarterback of that class, he was the number 1 recruit of the 1990 recruiting class from St. Ignatius, Ohio. Went to Ohio State. We'll get to that in a moment.
Reminds me of Dan Kendra, who was once the top recruit to Florida State in the mid '90s. Who I don't even think I ever saw him take a snap.
Wild, bro. Wild. Going back on these lists, it's crazy. Chris Winkie was the number 19 recruit in the whole country, number 2 quarterback. And then Drew Bledsoe was number 3 at 37. So he was like a fringe 4-star. So Joe Pickens, number 1 recruit, went to Ohio State. Okay. Fucking didn't even play, didn't sniff the field, dude. So he went to Ohio State. I believe the story goes he committed to Earl Bruce because Earl Bruce threw the ball, right? Art Schleister, Jim Carsados, all that. Gets fired. John Cooper comes in. John Cooper's like, we're going to run the ball again. We're, back to old school. And he was just like, I can't, he was wanting quarterbacks that could move, run around like Brett Powers, Kirk Herbstreit, a little bit more athleticism. Couldn't hang. Transferred to Duke, still didn't sniff the fucking field. Now he's like a doctor or something. Okay. So here's some more fun facts. Ohio State that year had 6 top 100 recruits in the 1990 recruiting class. 2 in the top 10. Okay. All right. I'm going to read through these and you let me know if you I'm going to read through these and you're going to tell me if you remember these guys at all. So obviously we talked about Joe Pickens. That was a big no, correct?
I don't recall him. No.
Okay. Well, you're in North Carolina now too. So no, you don't recall him at Duke either.
I don't. I mean, I watched a shit ton of Duke back in the day because my brother I grew up in Washington, D.C. My brother was a big Duke fan for basketball and it bled into football. So dude, watching Duke in the 90s was like, it's like it couldn't be any worse. and we would get the regional game. People don't know the struggle. They're like Ohio State could be playing, a top 10 Iowa team back then. and I would be stuck with Duke, Florida State, up 45 points in the fourth quarter. And you're like, good God, why can't I watch one of the better games? But anyway, yeah, continue. Sorry.
Larry Kennedy, the number 10 overall recruit, defensive back, hails from the state of Florida, committed to Ohio State.
Drawing a blank right now. Yeah.
He was academically ineligible. Had to enroll at Florida.
Spurrier, of course. Spurrier goes, I see talent. When I see talent, I get talent. Right?
He played. He played. He was not very good, but he did play. All right, number 3 highest rated recruit in Ohio State 1990 class, Robert Smith at number 25.
Yeah, the doctor.
There you go. Okay. Joey Galloway at 39.
Yeah. One of the more unbelievable, like, sometimes I don't think people realize how, he's become such an ESPN analyst. I think people forget how good he was. He was unbelievably good.
And he was so good for so long too. Like he was in the NFL, even when he was with the Buccaneers at the ripe old age of 30 or whatever. It was like, dude, that guy can still play, man.
He's one that I think would be better in today's NFL. And also, I mean, even back then he would have been better if he was just not on the Seahawks when they had like Rick Meyer for and John Freeze and stuff for an eternity. I just remember like his rookie year, he came in and I was like, I mean, because I almost felt like Ohio State didn't utilize his skills enough. Because when I remember as a rookie, I was like, oh, he returned a punt against the Redskins where I was just like, oh my God. Like it was just almost like Barry Sanders-esque. Yeah.
Yeah, fast as hell. Number 46 overall recruit, Mike Dooley.
Why does that sound familiar? But I can't picture. I can't picture him, but it sounds familiar. But no, I'm going to say no then, I guess.
Apparently he played for Ohio State. I don't recognize the name either. He never started, but he was always a guy that they were like, oh, the 4-star recruit's going to figure out. You need Google his name. The news articles pull up, but he didn't do shit. And then the last guy is Preston Harrison, who was the 60th recruit.
Preston Harrison. Drawing a blank.
That might be a guy that you remember, like when you pull up the games, because he did play, he did start. He was the 4-star quarterback. They moved him to outside linebacker. He was all right. He went to jail for like insurance fraud or some shit. So
perfect.
Yeah. And I know you're a big recruiting guy, so or you hate recruiting. So I thought that this was more evidence for you.
I've always thought like it's kind of a sham. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, sometimes it mattered, but I mean, I thought like a lot of them, especially with quarterbacks, I thought were a complete sham.
I mean, we just went, if you told me that Ohio State got 6 of the top 100 recruits, I'd be like, oh dude, game fucking over. And I only knew 3 of those guys. To put in perspective how that recruiting class was, Garrison Hurst was the number 4 overall recruit. Marvin Jones, linebacker from Florida State, 6.
Beast.
Jerome Bettis was the 12th. And then we talked about Chris Winkie and Drew Bledsoe. But that's it. That's my spiel. That's what I was doing over the weekend, was kind of going over old recruiting classes. And I was just like, what the fuck happened here?
You simply glazed over the fact that Chris Winkie and Jerome Bettis were in the same fucking recruiting class.
Oh, dude. Which blows my mind.
He like retired when he entered the NFL.
Yeah.
Chris Winkie won the Heisman Trophy. Jerome Bettis was entering his 8th year. Think about it. Isn't that fucking crazy?
That's wild. Absolutely wild. Absolutely wild.
Two noticeables in that top 100 class. You got 61. You got Willie McGinnis, and 84 Dwayne Johnson. Same recruiting class.
You know who Willie McGinnis' high school teammate was Snoop Dogg.
Ooh, really?
Yeah, played wideout. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Inspired the Dreads, huh?
Yeah.
No shit. All right. Well, I went on my little throwback spiel there. Chris, where would you like to? Chris is our new producer, Colby, and he does a hell of a job keeping us on time as long as I don't screw it all up. Chris, where we go from here?
Well, Colby, you need to let the other individuals that are logged in, and of course, each and every one of you, thanks for jumping on and spending your hour with us. How do we start? How do we start with the college experience? How does this come to fruition for you?
Oh man, I have been doing stand-up comedy for over 20 years now.
Oh wow!
I'm glad to see it's paid off. And in 2012. A stand-up buddy of mine, he started a thing called the Sports Gambling Podcast, which was just NFL picks. It was only from late August until January. It was only covering the NFL every Sunday. And I had booked him on a couple comedy shows that I had done. It was a Toys for Tots show I would do every year. I would always book him because we just like to talk sports. It was like, who should I get? Oh yeah, let me get this guy. We talk sports every time we meet up. And the first time he came and did that show, he got pretty drunk. And then he starts telling me, you should, everyone tells me, sports well, and I know we talk about it, but you should come on our show and our podcast. But this is 2012, so I was like, podcast? I was like, what the fuck's he even talking about, right? Like, I had heard podcasts, but I didn't even. He was pretty hammered, so I was like, And then I saw him like a month later out doing stand up, and he told me again. I'm like, okay, I mean, I'll say no to nothing. You know what I mean? As far as stand up, I've done fucking CarMax commercials. I've done, the stupidest shit you could imagine. So I'm like, sure, let's go. I love sports. I grew up, loving sports and specifically college football and college basketball. And then I came in there and we did that, and it kind of took off as, not real, like for that, it was like, cool. We had fun doing it for a year, but it got a few downloads at the time. So like, we're like, okay, let's keep doing it. But I never thought it could be a career of mine. And then I just told him that, I don't really, I prefer college over NFL by a gigantic amount. Right. And I was just like, I can write some blog posts for each conference, but I feel like at some point we should do a college football podcast. And I think we started doing college football on their show first. Then I was like, you guys don't dive deep enough. I'm an East Carolina fan. No one talks about East Carolina. We should be talking about every team like Phil Steele style, right? Like, Ooh. And then, we started, I just said, I got some buddies. We can do this. With your guys' blessing, if we can, get some money, let's go. Well, I think we started off doing it for free for a couple of years, but then it grew. I mean, it was a natural thing. Like we were having the three people that do the show for the football show. That was us like every day as a kid. So it was a very natural thing for us arguing about, Bo Jackson or Marcus Allen or some shit, you know what I mean? Or whatever, Spurrier or Bowden, and then it did well. And then college basketball came, and then COVID came, and our numbers, like mine, I was the only guy whose life was getting better with COVID. I talked to like a comedian friend of mine that's like losing family members left and right, and I don't want to even tell him that. I'm like, dude, our numbers are going great with this fucking COVID thing. You know what I mean? Like,
like these margins.
Yeah. Just like, let me tell you about these numbers. I go, oh, you lost an uncle. These numbers are fantastic. But
he's got pie charts and shit.
Yeah. So it was all like a blessing, and then we thought, well, what are we doing? We gotta maximize this. So it became kind of our livelihood in a way. Like, I still do stand up. I still wanted to be doing stand up, but having a baby and stuff, I'm very lucky to be in a spot where we kind of just picked up on this thing that gets millions of downloads every year, being SGPN. So sheer accident in a way, but I feel like I was always built for talking sports.
Dude, again, I don't want to spend the whole podcast stroking your dick, but it's even if it's like a dead period, dude. Like there was one episode where you and CJ just went on about Steven Seagal movies for like 15 fucking. I was dying. I didn't leave my car. I was driving somewhere, but I stayed in my car because I was like, oh my god, dude, this conversation's hilarious, man. Like it's just some of the shit you guys talk about, like I don't even know where to begin. And another cool part to get back on the football side is that I listen to a lot of podcasts. You're not the only podcast I listen to, right? I listen to a lot of Ohio State podcasts, and they'll talk about these transfers. We use the transfer as an example, and you can tell that they didn't watch a Rice game, right? They're just like, yeah, well, 24/7 Sports gives I can't pronounce the kid's name, the left tackle, a 5-star rating. But you can tell they've never watched him play at Rice. But with you, like for instance, I listened to the North Carolina episode last week, and you're talking about Ryan Brown, the backup quarterback for Purdue, and you're rated because who wasn't rated at all on 24/7 Sports as a good transfer, but you're like, no, man, this guy can play. Which I saw him in person, and I was like, dude, this guy fucking get. So every now and again, it's like you have this opinion that's just so out of left field because you had to create it on your own, and it's just so it's most of the time it's correct, man.
You just gotta. Thank you. I mean, you just gotta put the time in. Like when Cam Ward was at Incarnate Word, I knew he was a dog. I was just like, oh, whoever gets him is gonna be, he's legit. And same with Scattaboo. Like, I mean, if you just watch the games, and luckily for us, we have a studio with 8 TVs, and we get to watch all these games for teams that we love. I mean, you got to truly love the sport, I think. But yeah, I mean, I get the same sense though when I see some people tune in, like, or I see the rankings. I'm just like, what? Like, some of you just never understood. You're sitting there like, Wisconsin lands 5-star Tyler Van Dyke, and I'm just like,
yeah,
5? You're gonna give him a 5?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have anything against the guy, but I just never seen him be a 5. Like, okay.
Yeah, the transfer portal has really kind of exposed some people because people are just following those rankings blindly. And it's like, just like the kid from Minnesota, everybody's all excited about at Ohio State. Like, oh man, he's really good. And it's like, he started 4 games.
Yeah.
He started 4 games. You know what I mean? Or like the kid from Rice is huge. That's his deal. But to act like he even dominated at Rice is,
yeah.
When I think of dominating in that conference at that level, I think of like Marcus Davenport, University of Texas San Antonio, UTSA, right? He didn't dominate like that. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of interesting. People just take these rankings and run. So the transfer portals really, really expose some people. I would agree with that.
Yeah. And it's something that, I don't know. I'm loving the fact that, I mean, you saw like how many former FCS guys were killed it in college football last year. I mean, I know like Travis Hunter was an anomaly, former FCS guy, but that one doesn't really count. But the other ones for the most part, the Scattaboo and stuff, like I thought it was great to see. Very refreshing.
Are you worried? Because I know you're a small school guy. Are you worried at all that because we actually had an NIL agent on a couple weeks ago. And he was talking about how he views the FCS as basically it's going to be a minor league system for the FBS, is how his people are treating it. Are you worried about that? Because I know you like to watch.
Yeah, I mean,
Ohio State got 2 guys from that level. The defensive end from Idaho State, and then they got outside linebacker Howard from Duquesne. Logan Hall, I think was his name. No,
yeah.
Can't remember.
But the thing that I mean, it's a 2-way street though too. They also get guys, who was it last year? Was it Incarnate Word that had Zach Calzada?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
You know what I mean? So it goes the other way too. But I mean, yeah, it's a bummer. Like, but at the same time, like, I mean, what are you gonna do? You know what I mean? Like I like to think at least college football has a defense system where like if that doesn't fit you, then you can drop down to D2. But then the FCS players are going to be taking some D2 guys, right? So it's like, you could just, to me, it's, it is just it's funny. I was recently doing a deep dive on, I was like, I remember when like Bobby Bowden, the pendulum swung on this transfer portal thing. And of course it went batshit crazy because I remember reading an article and I want to say, I don't remember the running back's name, but it was a running back at Florida State that wanted to transfer for his senior year. Right. He wanted out. And Bobby Bowden, this is like in like 89 or something, right around there, 90, something like that. And Bobby Bowden goes, sure, you can leave, but it's got to be somewhere in the Pacific time zone. Right. And it's like back then you have no internet. And you're like, well, who the hell am I going to know in the Pacific time zone? Well, I just pick up a phone book and just start calling universities. And I just thought, what a dickhead. Right. Yeah. And then Bill Snyder was another one and I love Bill. I love those K-State teams, but he would do the same. He would do similar stuff. He would actually block a lot of transfers. And damn, if I wasn't reading a book about Snyder, a bunch of coaches, but Snyder early on in his career, he's a transfer. It's like, what a dickhead, right? He went to 2 different schools, right? And so, of course, when the pendulum swung back, it was going to be severe, unfortunately. I would prefer it the other way. Like I'd prefer like a one-time transfer for non-graduates, but I don't know that that's ever going to happen.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'll have to hook you up with that agent, but he was talking about how he'll have his clients call him and be like, all right, I'm going to go to the portal. And he's like, well, let's think. Like, the grass isn't always greener. There's not always more money. More money isn't always a great thing. But yeah, it's gone a little too far. You got these guys transferring 2-3 times, and it's kind of a bummer. And I as an Ohio State fan, I like to cover some of these guys even after they leave. I'm still rooting for them, like Jamison Williams or, there's a couple guys that have entered the portal, or, like you talked about Jaden McKenzie, who transferred to East Carolina, right?
Yeah.
But some of these guys are transferring 2-3 times, and it's just depressing. Yeah, which, by the way, he how would you summarize that transfer? Is that a win, or I know he had a good game against Temple?
Yeah, I would say that was a win. I mean, I'd say that was a win, but it wasn't like as perhaps as good as I thought it was going to be. But I'll say this, man, when I think back of my childhood, like, or not even my childhood, just growing up an ECU fan, and Jeff Blake and Chris Johnson would have never been there. They would have been gone after a year. And that's a bummer, because those are some of the best years. When you think about it like that, you're like, a lot of our best players wouldn't be able to, like, Chris Johnson would have been playing for Miami or some shit, so.
Davis wouldn't have stuck around.
I know. I know. I know. Even though we got him from Boston College, but yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, you're right. My bad. Yeah, he would have been multiple transfer.
But David Garrard would be a one. He would have gone. Yeah.
You can think about that.
Chris, I know I'm veering off.
No, you're fine. You're fine. No, I was thinking about it, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask while it was still fresh in my head. Stand-up comedy. One, who's your current favorite comic, but also who have you opened for that was just out of this world funny, or you maybe blew up in popularity?
Well, I had a bunch of buddies that have quote unquote made it. That I started out with. But I guess it defines. I've opened up did I get booked on like a tour, or was I at the Comedy Store and they were on the same bill as me? It's because I've had it before, like where, major people came on the same shows. I unfortunately had Bobby Lee was a comedian that unfortunately I had to one time Chappelle dropped in. So I was sandwiched between Chappelle and Bobby Lee, and it was not a fun experience. It's not a fun experience. I wasn't booked on their tours or anything, but I've had buddies like, I don't know if you know who Andrew Santino is, or Theo Vaughn. Theo Vaughn, I've known these guys. We did open mics. I've known them for a long time. So it's great to see their success. So, I would say that my favorite comedian, though, is probably, he passed away, but, Norm Macdonald is probably my one of my all times. Just and great guy too. I had a chance to meet him a few times, and just a absolute great guy.
Really, dude, he's one of my favorites of all time. Man. Those the old weekend updates when he just rails on OJ. Jesus Christ! Dude.
No one would like. That's the thing. I feel like most comedians know this, but like, he was the most gangster comic of all time, in my opinion. Like, he would just. I've seen the guy. At the Improv and stuff, I've seen him I remember he was like recording a special, and he started off with a joke, it bombed, someone like heckled him, and he just ditched his special and talked about that, went into that, what he bombed about, like that topic, not like angry, but just for the next 1 hour. And it was fucking hilarious. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. But I also thought the crowd did not understand it. They're like, aren't we here for a special? But it was like, he didn't give a fuck. And that's what was so great about it. It was like, he was just fucking with them. But he was phenomenal, and it sucks he left this world a little too early.
Another big sports gambler.
Too. Oh yeah. That too. That too.
I caught the Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary special last week, or a couple weeks back. And they had that, they brought talking about all the best weekend update host, and they had Norm on there, and of course he pulls Norm number one, and he's like, you know what, now to think about it, maybe OJ did do it. So the College Experience podcast, they're on YouTube alone. We're over 2,000 plus uploads on the College Experience. What dreams of the future do you guys have for the channel, or like what do you guys are striving to obtain, or what do you guys maybe have coming up that's a big monument for you guys?
March Madness is a big deal for us for college hoops. We go out to Vegas, so we'll be at the Circa. And that's another cool thing, is like the Circa has been a big part of our development as well. Just from an SGPN point of view, they've been so kind to us over the years. So we're doing like a party at Circa for March Madness. If you guys are in Las Vegas, anyone out in Vegas, for the week of, the opening of March Madness, we're throwing a party on that Wednesday, the play-in games happening. So feel free to come out, stadium swim at Circa. But, besides that, man, I just want to cover it better and more thorough. And, I don't really have, just get as much fans as we can, but on our terms, because I don't want the wrong, one of the best things that I love about my job is I don't have to, I can talk about whatever I want. You know what I mean? Because I know friends of mine and stuff that have worked at, whether ESPN or other places where you can't talk freely about what you want to talk about. So as long as we can, continue to make more money, but at the same time, not sacrifice our souls essentially. That's really what I would like to do. But yeah. I don't know. I'd like to say like become a millionaire. But yeah, I would say that would be the thing I would answer for that.
Dude, no. I've been listening to your podcast for a while, for a long time. I think because how long has your brother been, NC Nick? How long has he been on the show with you?
He came on, I don't know, probably around COVID, I would say, right? Maybe the year before COVID. Yeah.
It used to be just you and Patty C for a bit, right?
Me and Patty C for a long time, just talking. That was just football, basketball for a lot of years. I was doing solo because the lines would come out so late. That's another great thing for us. That just part of the COVID greatness for me was a bunch of states got more legalized gambling, and that was just a beautiful accident with all of that. That was nothing that so now you can talk about it. Like now the lines are out right now for tomorrow's game. So we can do a show every night. Before, man, I would wake up at 5 a.m. by myself and just talking into a microphone. So, yeah,
the shows, every time I listen to it, every year, when I re-up or whatever, because I listen to a lot of your preseason previews too. It's gotten better. I remember when you added your brother, I was like, oh man, he added his brother. That's weird. But dude, I follow him on X. He's got great advice. He's the shit. You guys got a good rapport. Patty C. It's a great show. Even when you guys aren't talking football, I try to log into the basketball stuff. And when you're on the SGPN main station too, I love that. That's which shout out to Ryan Kramer for not being finally someone's brave enough, not just us. We've been talking about it for months, to say they're sick of seeing Kirk Herbstreit's dog. You know what I mean? So thank God for being brave enough to say that. But yeah, man, everywhere you're at, dude, it's good shit. I like the banter as a part of it, right? And you guys, and when you're covering the game too, you guys always bring up old funny shit that's happened in the school past. Like, oh, do you remember when?
Yeah.
On the field, shit like that. It's like,
you got to have fun with it, man. That's part of, to me, just in general. Like I would never want to do something that I didn't have fun with for a job. I've had plenty of those jobs, and I still hate those. I still have nightmares about those. But it's funny. I'm curious. Like, so Herbstreit, I feel like a lot of I'm getting bad comments about I hate Ohio State. I just want to say, I appreciate what Ohio State is. Uniform wise, stadium wise, they are perfect with football to me, right? When I think of football, they are the epitome of football, or one of the most, brands of like classic football to me. So I love that about them. I just happen to have a friend that I find very annoying. So at times he gets the best of me. And then also I feel like, sometimes I have a little bit of resentment towards the SEC and Big Ten sometimes right now, mainly because they're trying to take over the world. All right. And I'm like, fuck you guys. But I'm curious with Herbstreit, where are you guys at? Because I feel like it's such a love-hate. With every Ohio State fan I talk to, it's one of the first things that comes up, and some give him the pass still. Some say, no. May he, never talk in front of a microphone ever again. But where are you guys at with him?
Well, first of all, big shout out to Quad Smith here, former wide receiver at Akron. Quad, if you're interested, bro, you come on this show anytime you want. And if you're wanting more information if you're trying to follow your zips, dude, check out Colby's show, bro, because he's one of the only people that actually talk about this. But shout out to Quad, even though he said Ohio State's overrated, I'll take it. And I have to admit, Colby, the highest people mentioned that you hate Ohio State. I mentioned on the podcast last week. I said, hey, we're gonna bring in an unbiased dude. He doesn't even like Ohio State. He hates Ohio State. He's an Ohio State hater. So some of that's maybe my fault.
Well, no, I mean, and it's fair. I mean, look, I get, I was not the biggest Urban Meyer fan, even though I think he was a great football coach. I'm not the biggest fan. So I mean, it's warranted. I mean, you guys, but I've always respected to me, it's like people say I hate Notre Dame, but I love their uniforms, love their stadium. I love what they're about in a way, just like Ohio State in a way. Like as a football guy, you can't not love and respect Ohio State to a certain degree. Now, sometimes when you see a ranking and, you see, what I call the Texas treatment, which they just put them, they could do no wrong. You lost a game. I call it out. And I feel like sometimes that could paint me in the box of like, I hate this team probably more than I probably really actually do.
No, man, I'm just giving, I'm giving a hard time, but we always try to be unbiased in the show. Actually, Chris will attest to this. When Ohio State lost to Michigan again, we were on the show railing on Ryan Day and talking shit about Ohio State, and the chat lit up with Michigan dudes trying to talk shit. We're just like, yeah, no, Ohio State blows. I mean, what was it, Long Dong Crypto? He commented like 85 times, Great and then name. Finally he was like, all right, you guys are pretty cool. And then logged on. And we had like 35 Michigan people the next week, just because we try to be as objective as possible. So we liked, we had the NIL agent we had on, Austin Feniger. He went to Miami, the U. So he doesn't even think Ohio State deserved to win that 02 championship. So we like the objectiveness. But back to the Kirk Herbstreit thing. I didn't know that his wife was sick throughout all this.
Yeah,
right?
I don't think any of us knew. So I mean, how could we have known?
Yeah, that shit sucks, right? And his first dog did pass away, so that shit does suck. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. He is a Buckeye. It is what it is. I think he is good at his job. He is a shill. That's the problem. That's very clear that he's a shill, right? He changes his opinion based off of what ESPN tells him to think, and that's very clear.
That's the part because I think I grew up liking him as an announcer and stuff, and I just feel like the past 5 years it's just been like a turn. Like, look, actually. You want to know probably number 2 most hated besides Texas is probably Florida State for me, right?
Really?
Yeah, I just grew up hating them, man. They would blow out everybody. Like I said, I got that regional coverage, so I got stuck with those like beatings on Rusty LaRue and Wake Forest. And I was like, man. And then Bobby Bowden would be classics. Like they'd ask him, why'd you score 91 points against Wake Forest? Well, in track, do you slow up at the end of a race? No, keep going. And I was like, what a dickhead, right? But that would probably, and I was lobbying for them to get in the playoff despite the quarterback injury situation, and just because I think right is right. You go undefeated, I hate Florida State, but I think they deserve to have the shot. I mean, and I thought it was so weak of Herbstreit to say at the time, to come down on that, and I'm like, well, what is every great story? I mean, we watched the Miracle ice skating or hockey movie, and you watch Rudy and you watch everything, Hoosiers and everything, and sport is supposed to be, and some of this shit is real. Some of this stuff happens for real sometimes. I mean, you think George Mason would have beat that UConn team? No, and back there's a million of these. Boise against Oklahoma. So who the fuck are we to say? And I just thought that was very cheap. And then this year with the Alabama thing, I was like, man. I'm losing respect by the months here. You just how, and it's unjustifiable to me. It's just blind. So anyway,
Chris, is that feedback on just from me? Oh shit. Okay. Yeah, no, dude, I'm with you. The Florida State thing was really frustrating too because it's like, we had another guy on the show here for a while, and he was talking about like, well, no, Florida State would just get dominated. It doesn't matter for us. And it's like, how do you know? You've been, dude, we've been doing the show together for 2 months. Every fucking week you say they're going to lose.
And like we've never seen blowouts in the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, it's just like the Indiana thing was super frustrating this year too, because I got people that I texted me like, Indiana blows. It's like, dude, you've said Indiana is blown for 8 weeks in a row, and they've won all the games. Well, their schedule blows. Now, not everything's all done. They're undefeated or whatever. They lost one game. Oh, wait, their schedule blows. Okay, dude, you can't do that. You can't say that you can't. You knew the schedule. You still told me that they were going to win 3 games if they were lucky. You hit the under, or you hit.
And they were blowing those teams out too. Those games weren't even close. So it's like, what are you supposed to do? You got to give them the shot. You know,
you can't do that. You can't be like, oh, they're going to lose every game. And then when they win, be like, well, their schedule blows. It's like, dude, it doesn't work that way. You already set a precedent. So I agree with you. It's very frustrating, but yeah, man. But back to the Herbstreit thing. And another thing I don't like about the Herbstreit thing is that everybody talks about him like he's this great Ohio State quarterback, and it's like, dude, he was really bad. He was the gap between Carsados and Bobby Hoyne. That's all he was. You know, it's really hard for me. I know that he was better. He didn't just get on the team because of his dad, right? Just because his dad was an All-American linebacker, James Herbstreit. You know, he's not like his kids. His kids are at Ohio State because, you know, their dad's Kirk, they're walk-ons or whatever. Kirk
they're
was
Michigan now, right?
But yeah, the one kid's at Michigan. So Kirk was better than that. You know, he's big, strong. You know what I mean? Like he was. I think he won a state championship at Centerville. So I'm not going to talk too much shit about it. He didn't deserve to be there. But they put him in this ethos. Like he's fought. You know, people are wearing his jersey at the stadium, and it's like, bro, no one's wearing Art Schleicher's jersey. And that guy was God. That guy was a Heisman finalist 3 years in a row, and then fucking stole a bunch of money from the Wendy's lady. That's sweet. That's legend status. Okay? Then he got busted with crack pipes at the old age of 80.
I like this guy more and more.
Yeah, Art Schleicher's a badass dude. He was doing crack, and then he would go win championships in the Arena Football League. That's a legend. Okay.
Amen. Amen. I grew up in a city. Marion Barry was reelected after he went to jail, so we can see eye to eye here. I like to know where my tax dollars are going. I like if I can see him with a prostitute, some crack, and a good time. I'm like, oh, this is better than most politicians. Have fun. Have another.
Dude, Colby, is that Chris? Can you hear that too, or is that just me? Is Colby crack?
His mic is cracking. Yeah, I was making sure it wasn't me, but it'll be fine.
All right, okay, no big deal. I just want to make sure it wasn't just me.
Do you want me to exit and come back?
Yeah, let's try that.
Okay.
Let's try that. And then meanwhile, Quad's got a question here as well. How Mr. Relevant this year's draft? We're going to have an NFL draft scout on here in 2 weeks, Quad, to answer that question. I don't think so. I actually spoke to an NFL agent last week before we did this podcast who told me that he wasn't even going to throw in the combine. And basically, I said that with a lot of confidence on this show last week. That, he's not going to do anything. And that ended up being wrong. My understanding was that people were telling him, don't do this. You're not ready. Don't do this. You just played last month. I don't know what his agent was telling him. Maybe his agent felt confident enough, like, oh, hey, it doesn't matter what you do, because if you do well, you're going to do well. If you do bad, you can always just blame it on the fact you just played. I don't think he's going to be Mr. Relevant. Last week on the show, I said that, I think he's got a chance to slip in the first. That's wrong. That's out the window. But I don't think he falls. I think he's a second rounder. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I think his draft stock fell a little bit. I don't know if I don't know if I was as high on Will Howard, post the national championship game as a lot of people were. I think we sat on here for a good 5, 6, maybe 7 week stint talking about he doesn't have the, that deep ball arm or anything like that. A lot of receivers having to slow down and adjust to his balls. But
that wasn't me. I wasn't a part of that, dude. Okay.
Give it a fucking break, would you?
No. It's very important that I set the record straight. I always said, he's not he's not CJ Stroud, but his arm is no weaker than, I don't know, who the fuck got drafted in the second round last year? Spencer Rattler?
Yeah, well, let's be real. You're out there, a lot of pressure on the kid. You got receivers you haven't thrown the ball to. I think he's a late day 2 guy. Someone's going to pick him up. Let's be real. He's not going to be Mr. Irrelevant, but he's a late day 2 guy.
Yeah, he's big, strong, fast, all that good stuff. But that leads us to, Chris, should we dive into Colby's thoughts on Ohio State last season?
Absolutely.
So we want to ask your thoughts. Like, what was your biggest takeaway from Ohio State's year last year? And then what was your biggest takeaway for the Big Ten in general?
Well, I can tell you, what a roller coaster of a season there. And I do agree with Tony Petitti's assessment of that's the most. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that was the hardest gauntlet. So I think it's in a way you can say the first true national champ I know there's other national champs that you could sit there and argue, but back in the day, you would have like 3 or 4 teams with the same record, so you're just picking one. Yep. So like this one, the gauntlet you had to go through, especially getting that seeding on that side of the bracket. But the fact you lost to Michigan and then you bounce back, and it was just what a roller coaster, what a great storyline in many regards. And then even the Will Howard thing, even myself, and I liked Will Howard. I love a quarterback that's a gamer. I thought he was a gamer. State, but I questioned getting that. I was like, wow, they got Will Howard over, Cam Ward and Dylan Gabriel. And just for the people know that I don't like Dylan Gabriel, but I'm just saying, I think I thought he was a better get than Will Howard, but that's the best part about sport. You get to shut people like us up and me and just, so I thought it was great, actually, all things considering, for the sport to see that redemption. So I did feel sorry for Oregon. I thought Oregon got like kind of hosed on the draw there. I thought that, like it probably should have been an Autzen personally, but what are you going to do? I mean, it's college football. You have the thought of 12 teams to me. I personally thought it should have been 16 or something, because it just doesn't make sense at 12, and it just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense there. So. But what a season. And to me, that's easily the hardest gauntlet anyone's gone through, Ohio State's season. Like, so you could tell the Michigan fans with that bullshit powder puff schedule they had the year before and the non-con, and that includes playing my boys. But, that obviously that gauntlet was much harder, and much respect to that. So, I mean, but overall the Big Ten, it was the best conference in football this year, I think. And I think that's a fact, but I mean, I kind of hate those West Coast teams in the Big Ten. I'm more of a traditionalist here, but I mean, it's tough when you have these super conferences and you get these schedule imbalances are so bad now. You're looking, that's why I think on our Indiana preview, I didn't call for them to make the playoff, but I said, this team can go to the playoff. And I meant that because I was like, this schedule, it lines up for them. Yeah. Now, I didn't say this, they're going to be in the fucking playoffs, but I just said with this schedule, I think I said the same for Rutgers too, but that didn't happen. But I mean, first of all, you might have said Indiana might. I think you might have. Did you put money on Indiana to make play? Because I remember you mentioning it a shit ton on your podcast in the offseason about Indiana, and the Rutgers just wasn't that far off. Rutgers had peaks and valleys. You know what I mean? Well, I thought Cignetti was so damn impressive at JMU that I was like, he's taking his whole team there. You have this schedule. Everyone knows the offense, knows the defense, so they have a leg up on most first-year coaches. But I mean, I can't say like 100% that I was like, oh, they're a lock for the playoffs. I just thought that schedule aligned nice for them to make a run to the playoffs. Yeah. And with the team that they brought in and Rourke and everything coming in from Ohio, who's a beast. Even though he played, injured all year, but he was a beast in the MAC. I thought it fit, but I mean, the Big Ten was the best conference. I will say that all day. And like, I'll be honest, I've been an SEC hater for a long time, but I feel like the Big Ten definitely gets under my skin with these Pac-12 additions. Like, I just, in a way, I root against them because I'm just like, but they were the best conference this year, man. They really were. When you really take it, you look at the whole conference as a whole. A lot of people don't give the Illini the respect they deserve.
No, they don't.
And the conference, I think, was clear cut number one. I don't think anyone can dispute that. No matter what my feelings are on the West Coast teams coming in.
Yeah, man. You talked about a couple interesting things there. First of all, the quarterback situation at Ohio State. I think you and I both talked about that last year too. I wanted Cam Ward over Will Howard as well. We did speak to someone that was close to the Cam Ward camp, and I guess he was a bit of a wild man his last year at Washington State. And the Ohio State coach Seth was aware of that, and they did not want to roll the dice. And then they wanted Dylan Gabriel, but Dylan Gabriel he was going to Oregon. And then the other guy they wanted was Michael Pratt, who obviously went to the NFL. So Will Howard was like their fourth choice. Will Howard was their third choice, but Cam Ward they had no interest.
Well, what's interesting is when you got Will Howard pre-Chip Kelly, because once Chip Kelly got there, I thought it made a lot more sense. Yep. I was like, oh, I could see this working more than I thought it was going to. Yeah. But yeah, it was still pretty shocking. I mean, that's what you got to love about, like, I love it when you have like I'm from the era of college football where like you watch Tommy Frazier just absolutely murder people, and you're just like, you don't need to have the first pick in the draft to win the Super Bowl or to win the championship. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen it countless times in my era. So it was refreshing in that regard.
Yeah. And then, I agree with what you're saying about the Big Ten too. I try not to sound biased, but when I talk about the Big Ten, I definitely do. Because like even the worst team in the Big Ten, you talk about Purdue, dude, I was on the sidelines. I see a lot of teams. Purdue's a big fucking team. Their offensive line, they're both those quarterbacks are big. The offensive line's big, and I know that doesn't mean that they're good football teams, but it's like you can see when you see Marshall come into town, you're like, okay, that's clearly a tier below. And I know there are some every other conference has that bottom.
And Marshall still won the Sun Belt.
Yeah. They got a first round pick of Mike Green, defensive end, who's absolutely disgusting, by the way. But I'm trying to think of it, like Kentucky. Like Kentucky does, they get Ohio State drip off. Like it's just not. I agree with you. Even the bottom of the Big Ten, it's like, man, there's some scary dudes. They just don't put it all together. Or there's a shitty coach, Ryan Walters, or whatever. But I agree with you. I as a traditionalist, I like the geography of it. But with the Pac-12 Golden, I'd rather them go to the Big Ten than anywhere else because the old Rose Bowl ties and shit like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I will say this: like, it's good to see the pendulum swing because I've we've interviewed guys. We're friends with guys that I'm buddies with the guy that played safety at Oregon, and he was really good. He's from LA, and he was telling me, I mean, this is like 15 years ago or something. He was like, USC was on probation at the time, so they didn't offer him money. But he said at the time, he was like, every SEC school except Vanderbilt has offered me a bag of cash. So I mean, we know this was going on. So it's like, they would have this opinion of like, we're the greatest. And I'm like, well, you have this gigantic edge. So I'm glad to see the sport even out and make this thing legal. And honestly, like, I think long-term, the Big Ten will benefit greatly from that as far as like when you consider the alumni bases, the amount of money that runs through the states that are involved in the Big Ten, I don't think it's going away. I think they're going to be ahead of even the SEC. The SEC will be fine. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to, I just think they're going to be powerhouses for years to come. The probably premier conference.
Yeah. I mean, you already have Alabama begging for money, right? And they were the league, I know a kid that was recruited heavily by a lot of places. He was a pretty big recruit, and he told me he was going to commit to an SEC school, and then they did some really shady business with his mom about money, and she was like, she's very religious and stuff, and she's like, oh my gosh, no, you can't go there now. But like, and he didn't have that story about other school. I mean, I'm sure Ohio State does it. I mean, I was there when Braxton Miller was there, and I would see things, why do you got so many?
I don't even blame them, because if you want to win a championship, that's what everyone else was doing. So
but
you had to.
I never saw bags of cash like supposedly kids would see down in the South. You know what I mean? Like I would see like dining cards that would work at Kroger and Finish Line. I would see, why do you have multiple cell phones? Why are you driving the coach's car? Shit like that. But which is still not great. But you catch my drift.
Well, dude, I mean, that's just what the sport. I mean, come on. There's a million of a bunch of programs were doing it, but it's good to see now that it's legal, that you can have a program. Some of your middle of the road teams that probably were abiding by the rules now have that opportunity to come up. I mean, we saw Vanderbilt in what year one of this thing, or year two of this thing, take a gigantic step forward.
Well, dude, I mean, how do you feel about, so now they're doing this revenue share thing, and they're we had the agent on a couple weeks ago, and he's going through all the paperwork and talk about that. And he basically thinks that the death of walk-ons is slowly creeping towards us, which bums me out too. It's like, man, is that going to be a major ramification of this money floating out there? Because we had a walk-on on the show a couple weeks ago, and it's like talking to a fan that's on the field. You know what I mean? It's just, it's a different vibe, I mean, that's that. I think he's
probably accurate from everything I've been told. But I mean, it's hard to forecast that just because you would think that. I mean, I guess it's probably coming down the pipeline, but that sucks because I mean that's what makes I mean, it's an element of it's one of the elements of college football that's great.
Yeah,
but I
Terry
guess
Gillis
it's like there's a bunch that and I just saw Belichick recruited like 3 or 4 lacrosse players this year for his football team. So I guess I don't know if that plans to go away because they don't even have a football background. I think one of them had played in high school a little bit, but yeah, I mean that's a bummer if so. Maybe that I don't know. I mean, a part of me is like, well, maybe that could strengthen other conferences, but not really. If you're a walk-on, sometimes you don't know your capabilities. So yeah, that's a bummer. And rev sharing, I mean, I don't like it becoming the NFL, but to me, as long as we can stay as like the beauty of it is it's unorganized, like, yes, it some years can be very frustrating when a Florida State's not getting in or you're sitting there saying, well, how the hell is Ohio State behind, Alabama in this spot or something like that? It can be, but I just love the fact that you just have a whole thing of 130 teams battling for this. And it's like, some of them are the illusion. Like you mentioned the Rice Owls before, like they don't really have a chance for the national championship, but I like the fact that you can think that they could, you know what I mean? Like, and now that you have a 12-team playoff, maybe they could even win a game, not necessarily Rice, but I'm saying, and I think that's good for the sport. And I do like those developments, but I don't like the overall, stop the talk of separating from like the SEC and Big Ten, just taking their stuff and separating from the, like, that scares me because I'm like, I don't even know that I want to subscribe to that, even though there's great football, great players. I like the history of the game, Yeah.
No, I agree. I agree with you. Yeah, man, even as an Ohio State fan, dude, some of the cooler things that I get to do or I get to talk to is, one of my buddies is a big Ohio booster, and he lets me behind the curtain a little bit at OU, and it's cool to talk to this. It's just a different style. You're not talking to professionals now. I hate that. Now when I'm talking to Ohio State players, I feel like I am talking to a professional athlete. I don't like that. You know what I mean? But so I still like to keep some of that I don't know, man, the amateurism or whatever. And if you start splitting away and those rumors and that shit, it starts to slip away a little bit more and more, especially with the walk-on thing. But I don't know, man. It is what it is. But as far as predictions, though, do you have any? What is your big prediction for Ohio State in 2025?
Well, I'm kind of. Do we know? I was going to actually ask you this. What are we settled at with the quarterback spot?
Chris, you want to answer this?
I think everybody in Ohio is clamoring for Julian Sayin. I know Josh over here.
That's what I hear too.
Wants to see the Bell Fountain boy St. Clair under the helm. But I like. But again, now we're in an era where this would be a year that we would absolutely be clamoring to see both of these guys in a spring game, but we're not going to get that either. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's going to be the fascinating thing. But I'll tell you, I look at the schedule and I know Texas is supposed to be loaded, but you're going to beat their ass. Let's go. I mean, I'm not as like in love with Sark. I feel like as a lot of people are. Like I think he has the program, but I think a lot of that is Chris Del Conte, their athletic director. He's a phenomenal athletic director. He was at TCU prior.
Like that.
And I think he's made that team better by just pumping more money to the right stuff and bringing in the right guys. Tom Herman, I actually, in a way, kind of feel sorry. I feel like if he would have had Del Conte, now Herman was terrible at FAU the past 2 years, but
shocked by that, by the way.
Yeah, me too. But I thought, had he had Del Conte there, because Sark, to me, I still feel like I thought Arizona State outplayed him in that game. And now I will say Sark put up a better fight against Ohio State than I thought. Like for a second there, I thought he caught a good game that game, but I don't know that he maximizes his talent still. He's been very, I think I recited this stat like a million times on the College Experience. He's played in this past 2 years, both playoff runs. He's played like 15 backup quarterbacks out of a possible 22, which is just unbelievably lucky. Unbelievable luck.
And I don't want to shit on your analysis of the Texas thing. I agree with you, but Also, Texas didn't fucking move the ball at all, and then JTT gets hurt, and then they move the ball a little bit, and then he comes back in the game, and then they don't move the fucking ball at all anymore. So it's like, even then, it's like, man, I can kind of pinpoint the exact area where you didn't fucking do shit. I agree with what you're saying about the Texas game, but even that game, it is a little weird that it lined up with that injury.
But as far as that, though, I mean, like you look and see, I think they're going to be in another strong spot to be, either winning the Big Ten or hosting a playoff game. Let's be honest, Ohio State in the talent level on their team. I know that they were a senior ridden team last year, but I still look at the schedule. And if you can get Texas, which is, that is a little bit of an if, the other games, getting Penn State at home, I just have to, at this point, guys, I have to see it. I mean, I understand they're bringing everybody back, but at this point, how many times I've said that, this is the year from a gambling perspective, not that I'm a Penn State fan. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to take Penn State this year. This has got to be the year. I'm done with that. I'm done because I've gotten burned so many times on that. Entering fourth quarters with double-digit leads, you know what I mean? And they got to show me. It's at the shoe. They got to show me that. So I think they'll be in contention. I am fascinated by the Illini game because I do think they were flying under the radar last year, and I think they'll be flying under the radar this year. And obviously the Michigan game will be huge in that, but I put you right there at the top, and there's no Oregon Ducks on the schedule this year, so that's even better. So, yeah, am I crazy though? Because I know that this is supposed to be the rebound year after you lose so many guys, but I'm like, okay, this is Ohio State. The next guy's awesome. Get this. I've been watching this my whole life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I think it was Stuart Mandel wrote an article the other day where it was like his mailbag. Someone asked him, who's next year's Florida State? And he was like, well, Ohio State matches that profile on paper. And I'm thinking, bro. No. And I'm not saying Ohio State's going to win the national championship, but Florida State won 2 games. They're a transactional program.
And Florida State was like a 5-7 team for 4 of the last 6 years. So it's like they had to rediscover, I know they had the 2-year stretch where they would go, but I think some of that was also just convenient. The ACC was kind of down those years. I fully expect Ohio State to be back in the mix. And like I said, like the schedule, getting Texas at home is huge. And then you look at the road trips, I'm not very bullish on Wisconsin. Washington, I will say Jed Fish was a little better than I thought he was in year 1. And then it comes down to the Michigan game. I mean, the Illini game, I actually think is really dangerous. The Illini game, I do think Bielema has that team fly. They could be a playoff team. You're looking for this year's Indiana. I haven't really dissected their schedule yet, but I do believe they're better than the perception. And so if you pull this up, what is the most losable game? You're going to say, because it's this show, you're going to say Texas because you're not going to say Michigan, right?
I might say Michigan, bro.
Yeah, okay.
You brought up a good point. If you look at that schedule, you see both going to Champaign and then going to Madison, Wisconsin, for a young quarterback, whoever it is. And then you're going to take that young quarterback into the big house at the end of the season. So
Fickle blows, though. He's done. He's on his deathbed.
Oh, man.
He's on his deathbed, but I'm thinking more of the environment, the atmosphere itself for a young quarterback.
I guess we've talked to a couple people that work with a couple transfers, and Fickle comes off as so desperate trying to get these kids to Wisconsin.
It was a weird hire from the start to me, but especially when he was going air raid I know it was the dairy raid with Phil Longo. To me, I was just kind of taken back on what the hell are you trying to do here? It was a weird fit from the start in that regard. Obviously, he was very, he did a great job at Cincinnati, so I can understand people wanting to hire him, but I'm not buying in. I think he got extended the other day though.
So you and I talked about that years ago when they hired him. When you're coach, remember that was when Cincinnati was in the AAC, and it's so much easier to recruit at Cincinnati. If you look at their recruiting classes in that conference, they're always got the best recruiting class.
Yeah.
It's way easier.
And I was a skeptic also because as an ECU fan, you'd play them a lot, or you'd watch the AAC a little bit more to get ready for that. You're saying, hey, I'm going to keep a closer eye than maybe some conferences.
Yeah.
credit to him for winning. I don't know if a lot of those games weren't close. Like ECU was horrible some of those years, and I was like, man, I can remember one time they came to Greenville, they won by like 3, and we were like a 3-win team. So like he kind of like won these games based off better talent, but I also the alarms were going off of like it wasn't at like I feel like some of the other teams like those Boise teams were fucking up every team. Like it was like they took like a good Fresno team and like it was like at Fresno and they'd win like 52-14. So to me, like I really bought in. Cincinnati, although they had good players, they won the games. They were barely getting by in some of these games where it just kind of set off alarms. Like, how good is he really?
Yeah, it felt like when he coached at Cincinnati, it was like he was just like, all right, I just got to keep this in the game because eventually one of my guys that doesn't belong here is going to pop, whether it be Desmond Ritter or that Tyler Scott kid or
Sauce Gardner. Yeah.
He had Jared Dokes, who was a transfer from Michigan. I mean, he always had somebody that was just like, okay, you remember that one game? I can't remember who they played. Was it Indiana? Where Desmond Ritter broke like 3 tackles behind the line of scrimmage and scrambled for a touchdown.
Yeah,
but they were losing before that. It's like you didn't call a good play. He made a good play. But yeah, I'm getting off of the Ohio State topic. Apologize.
No.
But do you have any predictions for the overall Big Ten?
Yeah. I mean, I think the Big Ten is good. Well, I look to it. I think they're going to get in 3 to 4 teams again. I think. I got to see how Michigan will be. I think Oregon will be fine. I think Dante Moore will be, in some ways, maybe even an upgrade. I think Dante Moore actually throws a better deep ball than Dylan Gabriel.
I agree with that.
So I think in that regard, if he takes a step forward since we last saw him, he could be even better than that. But I think Oregon will be back in the mix. Michigan is one that I need to see. They certainly came on late in the year. They certainly look like early in the year, they look pretty terrible. USC, I who knows, but I have my doubts. I have my doubts on what's going on there just because I'm somewhat closer to that program, I feel like, than some of the other ones just by living in LA and knowing some people. But I think the Illini, who knows with Iowa. I tell you what, I love that FCS kit with Gronowski. Iowa. Watch out for these Hawkeyes. Yeah. Nice. I mean, shit, they were close to that this past year with that, and their offense took a tiny step forward. So you talk a win or two difference. They're probably in the playoffs. Penn State though is obviously loaded on paper. I'm fascinated by the Jim Knowles thing. I was fascinated when Tom Allen left for Clemson. I'm fascinated by Knowles going there. They're definitely going to be a playoff team, especially when you look at that schedule. I look at that schedule and I'm like, how are they not getting to the playoffs? I think it's almost impossible that they don't get to the playoffs. Now they might not be hosting a game, but they're going to get to the playoffs. So teams and maybe even a best case scenario 5, if because the schedules with an 8-team conference, if you miss each other. I'd have to do a deeper dive on it. I know the schedules were just released a couple months ago, but that would be my strong takeaways. I do feel like the conference is up. I think it's the premier conference in college football, and it pains me to say that because, like I said, I'm not bullish of the 18-team conference, any 18-team conference ever, really. And I wish I could reverse that, but. You got to call it a spade. Like it's the best conference of football.
Don't you think you could do an 18? I don't think the problem, in my opinion, I don't think the problem is the amount of teams. I think the problem is that there's no structure. So they leave it open for them to cater to certain teams, right? If you split it up back into that, this now is the perfect time to do divisions because you play the 8 teams in your division, you rock and roll to the chain. I don't understand. That's the issue that I have with the 18 teams. It feels like they just created more chaos. When it's like you should go back to the organization of the division. Now you have it to where you can play in your division and base it off of geography or whatever.
100%. And knowing the one of the things I've always hated of college football, like if I was commissioner, I've hated the fact I did like a deep dive one time. I think it was during COVID because I had all the downtime. So I went through like 20 years of data. I should pull up the spreadsheet somewhere. I have it, and it was like. I think I just off the memory that like that Vanderbilt or Iowa State would always get like 2 sets of back-to-back away games. And it's like Alabama or, Ohio State or whoever they would protect. And I get it. That's their cash cow. But I don't think that's fair to the sport. I don't think that's fair. Like, if you're a fan of Iowa State, you're just like, fuck, Oklahoma hasn't played back-to-back away games in over 10 years, right? Now, within conference. And what's that?
No, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I will say, I don't know if that's necessarily the case as much now. Big Ten because they're owned by 3. There's 3 people, right? You got Fox, CBS, and Peacock. So, I mean, if you talk to Ohio State fans, they think they got screwed because basically every game's at fucking noon, right? So they're going to get Ohio. They're going to get Texas.
Penn State too, I think, right? Penn State's furious too about that.
Yeah, but if you're Ohio State, every game's at noon. But so they're going to get Texas at noon this year. But next year, because the SEC and ESPN's in charge, they're going to have to play in DKR at night. You know what I mean? So in Ohio, you're not. I'm not saying you're wrong. I think that you're right. But if you're an Ohio State fan, you're looking at these key games. You're like, dude, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Because they don't ever get.
Maybe this could be a good thing with the TV the TV companies. Even though I think I'm a skeptic still, but before you just saw the favoritism so much. Like when you did the deep dive on all the schools, you're like, within the only one that really botched it was Larry Scott in the Pac-12. I never understood. They never paid any attention to protecting their name brands. You looked at the other conferences. I was like, man, they kind of look out. They kind of look out for their top brands. Yeah. Right. And it makes a lot of sense. I get it because that's your cash cow. You want, Ohio State or Michigan to win the national championship, but it's still just like, you think like, damn, it's just unfair. It's just like, if you're Iowa State getting that many away games back to back, how do you justify that? If you're a fan, how are you supposed to be excited about the future? If you're going to get dealt that hand. So that's one thing that I would change if I was commissioner. But hopefully, the TV's execs do it.
So
I agree with you there.
I like that you said it, Colby, because Josh, he's been a fan of yourself and the college experience since the jump. He's gotten me on board now, and I'm listening to all the episodes. And you said something, because we're at an hour, but we would be remiss if we didn't get the opportunity to this, because we love your opinions. I love the fact that you said, if I were the commish, we're gonna close this one out. We're gonna call this Commissioner Colby's Collegiate Constitution. All right, you're the commish of college football. All right, you tell us what you would change today, and both of us, we're gonna go ahead and rule on it. How about that?
Oh, that's just fun. Because I don't think anyone ever agrees with me on this, but let's go.
Hold on. I mean, Chris,
give us 1 second.
One moment, please. 1 moment.
I like this. It's alone with me and a brick wall, right? It's like the couple times I was in prison, right?
All right.
Overnight jail. Yeah.
There we go. We got our barrister wigs on.
Barrister wigs are on.
We're ready to really judge this.
Love it. Absolutely love it. There we go. Should I fire or what?
Rule 1. You go right ahead.
Fire,
okay. Baby. We're going to expand the playoffs
to
24 teams, and every conference gets representation.
My God. What are the rules? Do you have built-in rules on this?
You win your conference you're in, first off, and then you take so you got 10 conferences, was it? I mean, I guess I didn't put the Notre Dame UConn thing into consideration, but that would be the one thing I dropped the ball on. But they can get an outright. Since Notre Dame's not in a conference, you can't get a guaranteed spot. Now, like I said, the Sun Belt winner, or whatever, say the worst conference, the MAC, this year's the worst. You're in as the 24th team. You play the one seed. So you structure it based on your strength of conference, and then you go through the teams. So like if you're a Power 5 conference, you're definitely, unless it's an unbelievable year where you can jump up some, you will be from 19 to 24 pretty much every year.
Okay. So You have the conference winner gets an automatic bid. I like that. I'm in favor for that. But my question is how do you determine the buys?
There's still subjectivity on this. Yeah, I mean, well, no, you don't have. I mean, your power conference. There's still a lot of subjectivity to this. You have to go through, your committee. Your committee. There's going to be corruption. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, like this year, the Big Ten. Like if you power rank your conferences, the committee, the 1 seed is the winner of the best conference, which would be the Big Ten. So. Oregon would have gotten the 1 seed this year.
Yeah.
Your 2 seed would be Georgia. Your 3 seed would be depending on what you think of the Big 12 or ACC, which one you think was better or they would vote on. That would be 3 and 4. And then that's where the committee comes in from 4 to 19, ranking their rankings essentially. And then you all play each other. And you have your final 5 are conference winners though, because I think you want to include all of America.
Okay, so are these playoff games all at home? I'm guessing based off.
Oh yeah, that was what I'm going to get to. That was another one we're going to get to too. All the rounds on campus until your final 4, right? And I'm even flexible with that. We could even go natty. And my final 4 though would move around between any legendary stadium named Bowl, Rose Bowl, Liberty Bowl, Sun Bowl, Yale Bowl. All right. We throw all those in there. I got to get a Midwest one though. There's got to be a Midwest representation in there somewhere. Maybe we throw in Soldier or Lambeau or something in the middle there, or Tom Benson, or I don't know. But if we're gonna do this, we do it right, because I want the whole country represented. You know what I mean? Like you got LA, you got Texas too. Actually, Cotton Bowl, that's another one. Cotton Bowl and Sun Bowl rotate in Texas, right? So you have you got to have a bowl though. You can't be doing this corporate nonsense. Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I don't want that. All right, that's boring. That's the NFL. I don't want the NFL. I want classic, legendary stadiums. And any of those ones that are bowls have been protected for a reason. They're classic. Your opinions?
Could we trade instead of, because you said the final 4 and then the championship game are neutral sites. What if, but they have to be classic stadiums. What if we trade and the final 4 are still at home away stadiums, okay? But the championship is in, your class.
And you can just pivot. You can just pivot that bowl.
Yes. And Rose Bowl would be included in that. I'm cool with that.
Yes.
It doesn't, Vegas has to be included. New Orleans has to be included. All that crap. Chris, what do you think? I think I'm on board.
I've got Will in the chat. Will says nay. Me, I'm hold this at Congress for 2 things. I need an answer. When do the college football playoffs start, Colby?
Ooh, good question.
Oh, I go right into that. I'm actually okay. I'm one of these ones. I do not want the season rushed up. I don't. I want it to go further.
What?
I'm okay with it going
exceed the NFL. You want it to exceed the Super Bowl.
Well, no, I'm saying like you end it right around there. You could do it like the week before, right? Okay. I don't think it's a problem. They say like we have football fatigue. That's never happened to me ever in my life. So I don't buy into football fatigue. My thing is like, I don't want games August 16th. I don't.
What?
I don't. I think it's too early.
Here's the issue Here's the issue I have with that. So I was on board with you, but on the scheduling, I think me and Chris are seeing eye to eye. I would like the college football season to end by January 7th, because I do think that transfer classes start up. I mean, at the end of the day, I know they're not really students anymore, but they are. They're transfer portal, all that garbage. So I would like to see the season pushed forward. And honestly, part of this thing, in my ideal world, with the expanded playoff, you make the regular season shorter. You know, we go back to maybe 10 games. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Or you're
I mean, I'd be open to the 10 game thing, but I mean, how about this? We get rid of conference championships. I'm on board with that. Okay. I don't like I hate the neutrality of that. They play in all these corporate NFL stadiums, which I just, it's not appealing to me. If you got rid of those and you started the playoff that week earlier or 2 weeks earlier, that'd be 2 weeks earlier, I think.
Yeah.
then you could kind of have a little bit of a runway a little bit into, but I don't think I can get it done by January 7th. I think it'd be very challenging. I just don't like, to me, it's already like in August, I feel like it's already too hot. Like the game's already, you get like all the lightning delays, it's just already too hot of a time to be playing football. You know, football is a sport created in November. I feel like it should be in these fall, winter months. It should not be in, for a spring league, maybe, but I'm saying for college football, I think you start it, you know, as what you currently have, and you just go all the way into where you ended. Maybe you can cut down two games though. I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, let's say you did 10 regular season games. All right.
No conference championships.
No conference championships. You play but we keep the I guess I don't want to. So you play your division of your conference. Well, what if you left in the conference championship, but you made that a part of the seeding, and then you cut down to where you're only playing maybe 9 games? Because you as
long as we can take the neutrality out of it, because if you guys saw last year, conference championships no one went to because the playoffs were the next week. So why would I invest in going to see? If you're an Arizona State fan, why are you going to where was it, Jerry's World, when you know next week you're going to be in the Peach Bowl? For Arizona State, I guess they had to win that, but you know what I mean. The other teams that we knew were in, we knew Georgia and Texas were in, we knew Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State were in.
You sold me. Fine, we'll get rid of conference champions.
I've got one more gate you need to cross, and I need you to be creative here. Okay, we're gonna have all these playoff games. Give me 2 more obscure networks that are going to host playoff games.
Oh, I'm on board with this C-Dub.
Say it again.
I think C-Dub does a good visual representation. Now, their play-by-play and ref, the guy that they were deeming like a former ref, which I'd never heard of him. They need some work on the microphone. The visual representation, though, I think is better than ESPN's. Like ESPN, for whatever reason, I was talking about this on our college basketball show. Like Fox, CBS, they figured out how it pops on screen, right? C-Dub, actually, no sports background, comes into college football, and I'm like, their shit actually looks good. ESPN is behind all that to me. For whatever reasons, I don't know if they're using older cameras. I don't know if they're just not it just doesn't pop the same way. When I watch and I can watch the same team on ESPN and the very next week they're on Fox or CBS, and it just pops better on those. So C-Dub and TNT, let's throw them in there.
I like TNT. I was going to try to sway you. Maybe we could do TLC. I can watch the game and then watch my 600-pound life. Or we can have some cross sponsorship.
Yeah. I mean, I'm open to that. To me nowadays, there's plenty of networks that you could throw that thing on whatever. I just don't want to have to switch over to like Peacock, because that's very annoying to me when you have to leave the platform, when you have to leave like YouTube TV to go all the way over. And very then you want to jump back to the other game, and you're like, damn it, here's this long process. It's loading. So yeah.
Could we rotate Dean Blandino for all the?
Oh God. God. He knows how to get under my skin. With Blandino. But speaking of which, you ready for this one? As commissioner.
Well, first you got an outstanding yay from me.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. I was going to say that we will no longer have automatic ejections for targeting, right? No longer automatic ejections for targeting. And I actually think targeting, like we should cut down on the targeting calls by about 85%, maybe 90%, just because I don't really believe those all like, I rarely see targeting, in my opinion. What I think is the definition, like I understand you could say you're going for the head, but the game's too fast. So I think unless you're maliciously trying to do it, like I remember there was a pit safety last year that actually maliciously, like I believe his intent was to hurt the person, right? That he's kicked out of the game. Good. Do that. Get him out of the game. But all these other ones, it's too subjective. We're cutting them back, and if you call it, you better have a real reason to call it. And on review, you're talking to the commish. I don't give a shit if it's a Rice Tulsa game. You call me up, you show me that. And we got to, so I don't know. Where are you guys at with this?
So Chris, you want to handle this first?
Here are my two gates. One, is it all targeting together? Is it leaving the feet? Or is it, do I need to go to replay? Then throw it out. If we got to think about it, throw it out.
Yeah, pretty much like to me, if you're leaving your feet, I still don't think you should. I mean, I need to see, you still have to, you can replay leaving your feet, I guess, but the other ones, if you think it's questionable, I don't want that flag thrown. And if so, I'll suspend that ref for that game or for the next game, because you got like the Arizona, like, I just don't know what it is. And I would challenge you guys. I see it like what they call happens like 20 times on the field.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why you can call it here, you can call it there. It just doesn't make sense for me. And I don't believe it really affects the player safety unless it's like the pit safety where you're just like, okay, he is trying to hurt somebody. Yeah. The rest to me are all just, you're trying to play football.
But I'm cool. Honestly, I'm cool with that. You should be trying to hurt the other team, right?
Yeah.
Like when
you're trying to stop them. Yeah. You're trying to stop them. Fuck you. You know what I mean? Like that should be your mentality.
Yeah, but you're not trying to kill him. But that is your mentality when you're playing and you're seeing a guy and he's not looking at you. You can decleat him, blindside him, and then, degeneration X over their face. You know what I mean? That's the goddamn American dream. You know what I mean? But to me, I think it's very, very clear how we can fix this, because I think that back in the day, I think the reason why we see it so often here too is because there's less hitting at practices. There's people don't, even these NFL players, you see a lack of them being able to tackle a perfect form tackle. I mean, go watch like Steve Atwater tape and shit. That dude didn't put his head down. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think it's very clear. I don't even care if you hit the guy's head. Go for it, right? Because that shit happens by accident. You can't. Really
you don't know how they're gonna lower a shoulder. Like you don't know the approach. And while we're on this topic, it is illegal to do an abrupt quarterback slide.
I like that too. But back to the targeting thing. I think we can make this very clear. If you put your head down, straight down to make the tackle. Now, obviously, if the guys were like, just say your instance, like the guy's getting low, and you're getting low, like the guy catches a pass, he's sliding, you got to go down. You're looking down at him, and that's why your head's down. That's acceptable. But if the if the running back's coming at you and you're a linebacker and you go to Goldberg him and spear him, you know what I mean? You're not seeing him when you go to put your arms around him. That's targeting. I don't care if the guy whiffs. I don't care if he hits his thigh. You put your head down, because that's how guys get hurt when they do a Ryan.
I actually think they kind of, for a little bit way back in the day, they kind of called that. Like I remember, like in the NFL, like there was a safety for the Eagles, Andre Dirty Waters, that would now he was maliciously trying to hurt people, but I remember like one year where they actually like came down on him, and I thought they were calling spearing. And going head first a little more frequently, but than normal. But what we have now is ridiculous. I remember watching a game. We have the 8 TV setup here at the studio, and I'm watching a game where 4 of the 8 TVs are on targeting reviews, and it was just random. I was just watching 8, and I'm like, they're all different games. That is too much.
I think it's very clear. Now, I vote a yay on this, and I think it's very clear. If you watch a play and your concern is that guy that's trying to make the tackle going to break his fucking neck and be in a wheelchair, that's targeting. That's throw him out. I'm okay with if you're trying to do that, get him out of the game. But all these other players getting kicked out of the game for just playing football, and suspended the next game for the first half sometimes, ridiculous. But you'll see targeting calls. I think there was one on Ohio State this year. The kid's head was up. It was a perfect form, and he went to go make the tackle as the kid caught the ball, but he hit his helmet. But it's like, dude, you can't control that. And kid, I think that.
I remember this. I think I remember that play. Yeah.
And it was a nasty hit, and the guy that got hit was hurt or probably had a concussion, and that sucks. I understand that, but the defender didn't do anything.
That's life.
That was a good form tackle, and he got punished for that. And that ain't right. Yeah. Might have been Argo Reese. I can't remember.
And my abrupt quarterback slide. If you do if it's 3rd and 15, your quarterback runs to a wide open side of the field, and he slides, and there's no one within 4 or 5 yards, cool.
Yep.
Dead ball. If you slide abruptly, that should be illegal to me. And if anything, I would put the penalty on the quarterback, not the defender, for playing football, which it just drives me. Dylan Gabriel is my most hated player just because I believe Jeff Levy teaches this. The UCF quarterback that from Hawaii that had the knee injury, not Dylan Gabriel. Yes, he started under Milton. They started doing this. Then follow Jeff Levy, Matt Corral. It was Dylan Gabriel at UCF, then Matt Corral, then Dylan Gabriel again at Oklahoma, right? And they started using it at Oregon last year too. It drives me absolutely crazy. But you saw it in a lot of, like, to me, last year was the first time that I saw it like from a sport wide thing. I saw Cam Fancher at FAU doing it. I saw, and I saw I feel like 20 to 30 different quarterbacks. A regular part of their game was trying to do the abrupt slide. And it's ridiculous. It goes against the rules of football to me. And the fact we penalize the defense is ridiculous.
I agree with you, and I feel like that's a pretty simple rule. If you slide and if you're sliding into someone's feet, you need to slide. Like, I mean, it's funny.
It's the most dangerous play in football. It really is, because like Gabriel got blasted against TCU when he was at Oklahoma. And they were like, this is such a malicious play. And I'm like, no, how is he going to know? First off, Dylan Gabriel runs for like 700 yards a season, right? Honestly, you have to fear his legs. And then, he slid late and the defender had already committed to the tackle. So he ends up hitting his head because he slid back and he ends up hitting his head right into the turf. So it is way more dangerous to me than any other play that I see as far as instant concussion. And for some reason, we're just okay with it because it's offense. Yeah, it's offense. Shame on the defender.
I'm going to add to that. If you're running towards the sidelines, okay, it's very clear that that's your intention. The sidelines. You see this with quarterback. See this with Mahomes all the time. If you hit the hash marks,
oh yeah,
and you come back in, fucking flag, because you see defenders slowing down to not hit you when you're going to the sidelines, and then they bounce it back in and they get 3, 4, 5 extra yards. And that
drives me crazy. Drives me crazy. Yeah.
No, you crossed all my gates on that one. Obviously, it's funny you bring that up with the slide because, I'm a baseball fan, and now you watch baseball, running into second, you can't take that second baseman or that shortstop out anymore, but we can do it in football,
Yeah.
And then also when it comes to, we're talking targeting, at a young age, Josh and I were coached by his dad, and he said, hey, if you're stupid enough to lower your head, you deserve to shit out your spine. So, hey, I'm with both of them.
Did he say that? My God.
He did. We were very young.
My dad was a harsh individual.
Yeah.
I like your dad.
So
I'm going to I have a whole list of these with this. I'm very excited about this, but everyone plays the same amount of Power 5 programs. Every Power 5 team must play a requirement of 9 Power 5 opponents. If we're doing the 12-game season, everyone's got to play 9.
Okay, I have a suggestion on this.
Yes.
Right, I like what we talked about, shorten the season. Okay, I would like to know. I think that you should only play your conference games, and then you're out of conference, whether it be 1 or 2 games, whatever we decide. I would like to know the economics of what it takes to make the smaller schools survive. I know that the small, I don't know what Ohio needs. I don't know what Ohio needs to survive, but I think that I would like those 2 games, right? If you're playing, we said 10 games or whatever, figure out the economics.
If we all did 8, I'm okay with 8 too. It just, I just want it even. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I also want to see those non-conference games be local. I think if Ohio State shouldn't be playing Grambling.
Oh, I loved like the North Carolina state law or whatever saying that like App State's got to play NC State, North Carolina, they all have to, there's a law that they all have to, and it's I know like we're finally getting Arkansas State next year, but there used to be a law saying they couldn't play because they feared that Arkansas State would come up and take some of their guys if they became good. But that's one of mine. Chris, you like my idea here?
I like yours. Again, I do see where Josh is coming from. You got to feed the kids. You know what I'm saying?
I'm with that too. I want small town, and that's why I'm okay with, as much as I even like the FCS angle. If that keeps their programs afloat, more football is what I am for. So however we got to do it, whether it's a spring game, whether it's, that game's just got to happen to me. Yeah. If we could feed the ecosystem to all those smaller schools. All right, I'm going to take you off the beaten path here. Every single Veterans Day, we will see Air Force against Army or Navy.
How would you decide? Just rotate?
Rotate.
Okay.
Are you still attempting to keep the structure and tradition of the Army Navy game, only game on the week?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in favor. I love that game personally. I know a lot of people. That's maybe my favorite game of the whole. Like Michigan, Ohio State's up there, Iron Bowl's up there, but I love Army Navy. To me,
does he know I'm in the Army?
I did not. No. So I'm all for protecting that game. People that want to, like Joel Klatt said, move it to week 0. I almost choked on my fucking sandwich when I read that. I was like, what is this guy saying? What? It's sacred to me. It should be played, but I think we don't honor the Air Force good enough. So here's my thing. If you don't want Veterans Day, then give me Thanksgiving with Air Force Navy. Then one of the two. Yeah.
I think that the Commander-in-Chief trophy needs more. I like that. I like the idea of making that more of a thing, like more prominent. I'm actually in favor of getting rid of that game being the only game of the week. Like, I don't know why Army Navy doesn't. I don't know why.
Well, they put a bowl game on it this year. They put like a South Alabama bowl game. Yeah, do a triple header, but just make that the main thing. Like College Game Day should be there. Everyone should be there. That's the main attraction to me.
Yeah. No, I'm cool with that. With that. Yeah.
I love that, especially like what you said. Hey, put it on Veterans Day when you can look. Obviously, the last regular season week is Army Navy, but if you can look at, not even have to look at a schedule and know that this game is happening. It's like Josh and I being Ohio State fans. We know that last Saturday in November is always Ohio State, Michigan. Hey, you always know Veterans Day, you're going to get a ball game.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I like that.
Yeah, another one which I don't know that I would have. It would be a little tricky, but I want rivalry week protected from conference commissioners. I want like the fact that BYU and Utah play like in like week 5 or 6 or something this year is pathetic to me. The fact that
Washington State.
Yeah. Oh, and Civil War too. Yeah. You should be playing your rival. And this should be like they should agree to this. If we're all sharing money and paying the players, we're all playing our rivals on the final week of the season, regardless of conference. All right, regardless of conference. So now you have all this conference movement going on. You don't get the backyard brawl the final week. That's disgusting. It should be the final week with the chance to screw up their entire perfect season. That's why the rivalry is so great. Like you get certain rivalries. The Holy War needs to be the final week of the season. I want the final punch to be essentially, what could be a death blow. You know what I mean? Like if Utah's having a down year, they're 3-8. They have a chance to ruin BYU's. They're on the bubble to make the playoffs. I love that drama. By putting it in the middle of the season, it kills it. And they've done this for a lot of these games. I'm forgetting more and while we're at it, also Egg Bowl, Thanksgiving as well. Get that shit off of Saturday and back to where it belongs on Thanksgiving. And I'll even say put Texas A&M on Thanksgiving.
So a couple things. So what do you do for the schools that don't have like Penn State? Like who's Penn State's? I have that figured out. Well, it depends. If
you can't, so Pitt's playing West Virginia the final week of the season, right?
Okay.
If we're not doing, and here's my other thing. This is great. I didn't even write this down, but I've always said this. Your second tier rivalry is always Halloween.
Ooh.
Right? Okay. Halloween weekend should be your second tier rivalry. Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You got to and by that point, your second tier rivalry, that's still you're getting deeper into the season. So like Iowa playing Iowa State week 2, I'd rather have that on Halloween, right? I'd rather have your other rivals around that time of year, right? Okay. So now how do you deem that?
Would that be something that you would want to convene on every year? Like, okay, hey, these are the best. Because rivalries, I mean, I know they Ohio State, Michigan doesn't change, but sometimes I don't know. Like, I mean, you could make an argument that there was a period.
Some develop, right?
Yeah, does that make sense? You know, because Ohio State, Penn State, that's not like an official rivalry, but like I feel like I feel like both fan bases kind of view it as a big deal, if that makes sense. But it's not.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Years ago, if your rules were existing, that wouldn't be a thing, right? So do you reevaluate that every year? Like these are the rivalry games. Yada.
And sometimes you're gonna try. You're gonna have to force some. Right, you're gonna there's 136 teams, so you're trying to force some. So I believe with Penn State in my sheet, I'd have to go back to it because I think I paired Notre Dame with USC the final week, right? But I'm okay. Wow. It depends what you want. If you want UCLA and USC the final week, which I'm on board with too, then the Notre Dame game moves to Halloween, right?
I'm cool with that because that allows for flexibility.
Well, then that kind of fucks over Penn State because then Notre Dame ends the season with Miami, Catholics versus convicts, because Miami can't play Florida State because Florida State's playing Florida, right?
Right.
So you move the Florida State Miami game to Halloween every year, right? Because that's the second tier rivalry, right? And then Penn State is kind of asked out. This is where you're trying to figure because I was going to pair them with Notre Dame if you wanted the USC game on the final year. I know it's not a historic rivalry, but it can be.
So you know what I mean? What you could do is you could try to find like who's got like if you're in the Big Ten, I'm trying to figure out like the teams with the empty rivalries. Rutgers has got kind of an empty rivalry plate. Maryland's got kind of an empty rivalry plate. So you're just trying to match up what's got the best storyline at that point, right? So does that make sense? I'm trying to think of other Big Ten schools that don't have.
I actually did a spreadsheet. I think it was during COVID. We did it in an episode of. I had it actually aligned for every single one. So I had it. I want to say I paired Penn State with Notre Dame, and if no one else would take that, then I just kept it as Michigan State because Michigan they get Michigan on Halloween. So Michigan State didn't have one, so it just kind of became that. Now that one's not that sexy, but majority of these ones were fire. And I the Halloween week actually became awesome because then you get so many of those second tier rivalries that are really good.
Yeah. And can we also back to the scheduling thing too? Can we also make it a rule that these independents they can remain independents? That's fine, but they have to align with the conference, kind of like what Notre Dame does with the ACC. That way, their schedule's figured out because I feel like that's an unfair advantage. That they get to, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair, and that's something that obviously right now there's only two, but you never know. So it's something you have to reassess nonstop. But yeah, so that's one of mine. Another one of mine would be we go back to the old overtime.
I like that.
Yes.
We overreacted as a society because A&M and LSU went to 8 overtimes.
Yeah.
Right. So the one time it happened out of 300 overtime games, and we overreacted about player safety. All right. If that happens once every 20 years, I've been watching. When did we go to that overtime? 93, 94, whatever year it was. No. So we didn't catch that all the way until what was that? 2015 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We overreacted. It was a better system then. I would even be interested in moving the ball back to the 40-yard line and putting more drama there. Can you get in field goal range by one first down? What's that?
Can I bear with me? What if we got rid of overtime and ties were just a thing again?
No.
With that? No, you hate that?
When I go to a sporting event, when I go to a sporting event, I want a clear-cut winner and loser. It's so important for trash talk. It's so important for
That's fair.
You got to have a winner and loser. I have a problem with the NFL. So to me, you have to have winner or loser, but go back to the old overtimes, and I'd be okay to put the ball at the 40-yard line because you'd have less you'd have less overtimes if you had kickers, potentially having to make a 54-yard field goal to win. You didn't get a first down. You're lining up for a 53-yard field goal. You're less likely to push that to another overtime.
I agree with you on that one too, because we've transformed overtime now to kind of basically just luck, like a 2-point conversion. It's bro, that's
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's
like soccer. It's like we've turned it into soccer with the penalty kick.
You're absolutely right because I'm a hockey fan as well, and I like they go to overtime and then it becomes 3-on-3. A lot of open ice. You see all these studs moving around, got all this open ice to skate, a lot of speed, love it. But if it doesn't get settled in overtime, we go to a shootout, and then the shootout's just a skill competition. It pisses me off.
I hate the shootout too.
Moving around, right? That's like your thing. Yeah, you love
absolutely.
Hey,
but I would.
Did my Chinese kid fuck this up when he packed it?
You got an Einstein thing going on here, dude. I got some tail. Also, I like your 40. Let's just do it for graphics and narrative. You and me meet at the 50. Right there at midfield. Let's go.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay. I like the strategy though of saying, are we going to go for this 4th and 5, or can our kicker make a 56-yard field goal?
I like that.
You know what I mean? Like, and also the crackback block is not going to be called anymore.
Oh, dude, yeah, 100%. Love that.
Yeah,
love that.
Bring back the decleters, yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's just ridiculous. When is he turning his head? I don't know. The game's going super fucking fast. Oh, but Blandino up in the office could tell. He knows this. He knows football. Great running back. You guys didn't realize that, huh?
Blandino? No,
he didn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he knows all about these punt returns. Let me tell you. All right.
It's from the comedian experience, right? Well, he was a comedian, right?
An open mic comic. I mean, I think. Yeah. I mean, he did allegedly. Yeah. I mean, he probably did about 7 sets, and then someone put it in his Wikipedia page.
That's right.
But but I'll say, yeah, that's much. I have a few. Let me see what else. One-time transfer rule. For unless you're a grad transfer. If you're a grad transfer, you can carry on, right?
Are you sure? Are you sure you want to allow that? Because I feel like that's where some of the issue comes in.
Yeah.
You got these because I hate the 30-year-olds.
They rush them through the school.
Well, that you got these 30-year-olds play. I hate the COVID rule ruined college football.
It was terrible. It still is.
Yeah, dude,
I mean,
it's ridiculous. And then
Charlotte basketball has a guy that starts. His name is Broswell. His last name. Struggling to remember his first name right now, but
Buff Bagwell.
I could only wish, but he started college in 2017.
Dude,
he was a freshman in 2017, and he's on the Charlotte 49ers. He starts for them, and it's 8 years into this thing.
Dude,
that's insane.
That's insanity.
I'm
glad you brought up Charlotte though, because I do want to make sure that the listeners hear. That's another one of my favorite bits that you do throughout the season is the best hits in college football. Dude, when you
Biff Hoagie.
Nice. First time you said that he had the best hits in college football.
Oh, yeah. My God. Dude, I'm so bitter they didn't keep him. I know you guys probably I wanted him to be successful so bad. I don't think you understand.
They pulled the plug on him a little too quick, in my opinion.
I thought so too, man. I thought along the line of scrimmage, he made that team much tougher. I get it. The skill position players, quarterback situation was really dire last year, but I thought the line of scrimmage offensively and defensively was actually I thought it was one of the better in the AAC. And I thought man, they're close to turning that corner.
I think the problem with him, why they pulled the plug, because they did upgrade. They got Tim Albin, but the problem,
I like that hire.
Yeah, he's great. I went to Ohio State to hire him. The problem with him is that I think that they hired him for his recruiting acumen because he had that experience at St. Francis, because that's what he did in Michigan. That's the only reason he got hired in Michigan is because he had that St. Francis. When he went there, they got 5 dudes from the best high school in Maryland. You know what I mean? And when he went to Charlotte, they're like, okay, and he got 1. In the 2 years he was there, and they're like, dude, fuck this.
He called out the media too, dude. He didn't do anything. I love the guy. Former offensive lineman at Pitt, you know what I mean? I think he's probably the best guy to have a beer with, but you can't be calling out he's getting in the press's face. Oh yeah, well you know, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You're fucking 2-9, dude. Just quiet right now, man. They're gonna axe you. So I was bummed out there, but he did have the best hits in college football. So. Unfortunately, he's on Michigan's staff now. Michigan has the best hits in college football right now.
I gotta know, was he the one doing the strips and the fucking bedazzling of the shirts, or did he have somebody on staff doing that?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that, but that's why I wanted him to succeed so much. That's why college football is to me always better that's the best form of football is because you can have a dude like that on the sidelines. You can have Jamie Chadwell's mullet. You can have, South Dakota had Bob Nielsen as their head coach, which rocked the tie, looking like Vince Lombardi or something. You got to keep the personalities. June Jones with the lay, you know what I mean? Like it's you gotta. That's part of the allure of the sport. So it's unfortunate. I hope he gets another chance to be a head coach, though.
Colby, give us your showstopper. Give us your last one. Give us the one that it's gotta happen.
This is a little obscure.
Go. We
got to bring back the old face mask.
Like the 1 bars?
Oh, I like all of them. I like what's God, what do we call that back in the day?
The big cage with the fucking little
yes, the hook,
the bull ring. Yeah.
The aesthetics, the cowboy collar. You know what I mean? Like all this shit has to come back. What made football so appealing when you were a kid was all this cool shit. One guy's got Joe Theismann's rocking a 1 bar. Yeah, yes, that's a beautiful face mask, right? And that needs to come back. We need difference. Everyone's rocks the same face mask now. It's disgusting.
Yep.
And I also would like the barefoot kicker to return, but a lot of people don't agree with my take on this one.
The barefoot kicker.
It just seems painful, and I want to watch them in pain. Right? Can we make it mandatory that every team have a barefoot kicker?
I'm down for that. The face mask. I am down for normalizing, like the one. Remember
that's classic.
Yeah,
that's classic.
Yeah. I don't know why that's not rocked, or why that's not killing it more.
And you can't even rock the Mike Doss visor anymore
with the Oakley.
Yeah.
Nobody wears Oakley no more.
They got to bring that back.
Yeah.
All right. Are you guys?
He also had the tight face mask too. Remember?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I know these are obscure. People look at me like I'm a maniac, but I think those are big. Cowboy collar was awesome. I missed the big shoulder pads too.
Yep. The Andy Katzenmoyer style.
Oh yeah. Like I want your linebacker to look like the most like vicious fucking guy, like Darth Vader. You know what I mean? I feel like,
yeah, they have, how Penn State has like, the badass gets 11 and Ohio State, like the zeros, like there should be a designated, like just fucking barbed wire. They have to have a mandated barbed wire tattoo.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Giant face.
Aesthetics means something. Aesthetics means something. All right. Every linebacker needs to have a Boz haircut with his number in his head.
Yep.
All right. Every middle linebacker.
I can't figure this one out.
Is that Leonard Thompson? I think that's Leonard Thompson. Yeah, that one. Look, but that's what's unique. If he wants to be that, he can be that. We'll ridicule it, but it's still hilarious, because he's kind of like the helicopter pilot look. But yeah, that's a big one of mine. I think it's very important to do that. Another thing is, how about this? Honestly, this one is great. And this one, I'm going to call out your institution. Play on fucking grass.
No, I agree.
Play on grass. 100%. Play on grass. Notre Dame did this shit too, where they changed it to the bullshit turf. I watch games all the time here at the studio, old games, and it pops better. It's safer for the players. If we really care about player safety, we shouldn't be playing in domes where the game's way faster. Grass.
No, I agree with you. That's where the player safety thing just kind of, because it's like, dude, if you really cared, you'd be running.
Yeah, I think I read that you have a 40% higher chance. According to some doctor in some magazine I read, 40% higher chance to get an injury on turf than you do on grass. So why are we playing that?
Yep. Yeah. Back to the visor thing. I got another classic George story for you. When I was in college, we had free equipment or whatever. I said, "Hey man, I think I'm going to get a visor. I think I'm going to look really cool with a visor." And he's like, "Yeah, you're going to look really cool on the bench." I was like, God, damn. I did not get the visor.
I just remember, like, when I was a kid, like, certain players, like, especially, like, your safety. I feel like your strong safety a lot of times would have, like, a visor. And I would just be like, it just added into the mystique of like, this dude will fuck you up. You know what I mean? Like, you go over the middle, this dude is going to fuck you up. And so I missed that part of the game of like knowing you'd see that guy. And in my head, I'm like, oh, Vincey Glenn, he's going to fuck this dude up if they go over the middle, you know? And that's part of the allure.
I'm with you, dude. I still got the Athlon magazine where Andy Katzenmoyer is on the cover, and they zoom in on his face, and you can see the stadium reflection.
Oh yeah, it's fucking awesome.
Like 8 years old when I saw that.
Yeah,
that highlight where he fucking crushes Kobe Jones, the quarterback from Missouri in like 1998.
Yeah,
I don't think. Yeah. I think
Corby Jones. Yeah.
Well, yeah, whatever. Yeah. And he gets up with his fucking visor and just like I'm like, God damn,
that's perfect.
Cool. As a 9-year-old, I was like, yeah, that's it. That's what I want to be.
You're sold. I was sold too, man. Watching that, you're just like, oh, I got it. I remember watching Boz, and I was like, I don't care how much of a dick he is. I want to be him. And I never could. But I was like, this guy's like Ric Flair on the football field. I want to be that, right?
Oh, when I was younger, and every time I hear Musburger bring up the big cat, I went from 6 to midnight.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to. Yeah.
Colby, let's be real. If you were commissioner, you have our full support, and hopefully with enough support and capital, we can get these changes implemented.
There we go. I appreciate you guys. Right?
Much like and I'm not actually gonna do anything.
Yeah, exactly. I appreciate you guys though, and I appreciate you letting me come on your airwaves and talk gibberish.
One more question before we gotta let you out. I asked you your top 5 quarterbacks on Ohio State history. Last time you came on the show, I asked you some of your favorite football players from Ohio State past. You named Sean Springs, Chris Spielman, Joey Galloway. I think you meant Benjamin Pepper Johnson, but I want to hear because I know you're probably gonna have the obvious ones, but I know you well enough.
Well, I struggle with this because I was like, do you want like the best statistically, or do you want my favorites?
Your favorites.
No.
Ooh,
favorite.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that reroutes my lineup, but I will then go to. All right. So let me see who I would have at 5. At 5 is going to be Cardale Jones because he beat the shit out of a kid in playing Madden 84-14 or something. He's got to qualify just off of being that awesome at life. At 4, I'm gonna go see this because I had my line with the best, so I'm spitballing here. At 4, I'm gonna go. Let's go. Troy. Actually, I like him a lot though. He's gonna go higher up. Give me Braxton Miller at 4.
Oh wow, okay. I didn't see that.
Yeah, I always thought he was a player, like great college quarterback. You know, I felt like kind of underrated, but there was you guys that were so dominant. I feel like in a way he kind of gets lost in the luster. You know what I mean? Like there were so many good quarterbacks you had in that era that but at 3 I'm gonna go to 1 Bobby Hoying.
Love it.
Ooh.
Love it.
That's honestly like, so when I was a kid, before I had some resentment towards Ohio State, which like I said, a lot of that had to do with a friend that we went to college with, that just, would run it down your fucking face nonstop. I was a big fan of those mid-90s Ohio State teams. One of my brothers was a Penn State fan. I remember, the Eddie George era specifically. I love that. I love that team. I wish would have won a national championship.
Yeah, man. You're talking about, Bobby Hoying, Terry Glenn, Chris Sanders, Joey Galloway.
They were loaded, man. The whole secondary, like everybody. They should have too. Like when you really think about that roster, you're like, how did they not? Yeah. But
Bobby Hoying was good too. He doesn't get enough credit because the stats aren't like CJ Stroud. But if he was in today's offense, he would rip it apart. I mean, Bobby Hoying had a fairly decent NFL career too, for given the circumstance. I think he's got some kind of weird fucking record because he got lucky 3 games in a row or some shit. But he was very, very, very talented. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I liked him. At 2, let's go with Troy Smith. I this is one part of because I also think he was like really like, you know, you have your favorites, but also like I just think the dude was a really talented quarterback. I almost feel like he'd be better in today's era, even though he wasn't that long ago. I feel like he would be put up even bigger number. I guess you could say that for any quarterback, but I'm gonna go Troy Smith at 2, and then at 1, you know I'm a Krenzel guy, man. 4th and 1 all day.
Oh,
4th
dude.
and 1 all day, man.
Yeah.
I like a quarterback that, you know, has no problem getting blasted and just kind of, to be honest, Will Howard is like a style of quarterback that I dig, where you play the game. You know what I mean? Like,
but the difference is Krenzel also knew how to get blasted off the field. Okay.
I heard rumors. That's probably why he's up there too.
Yeah.
I've heard rumors, so it's probably why he made it. Now, I will be honest. Mike Tomczak got rocked a lot when I was a kid, when he was in the NFL.
Yep.
Which made me kind of like him, because he would just get. I can remember like a time he was on the Steelers when he was playing the Lions, and he got just lit the fuck up. But he came back in after like a possession. He came back in and it was like, this dude looked like he was just. I respected the fact that that era of quarterback. There was a lot of those guys where they were just like, no, I'm not coming out.
Well,
that's coming out. So
that's a good one too. Well, the Troy Smith one, I knew you'd pick Troy Smith too, because obviously he played safety first, right? So his first time on the field, actually making a tackle on special teams, which is right up your alley, right? And then, but Mike Tomczak, he's funny because like he kind of got screwed because like he was like the last quarterback of the, hey, we're just going to run it down your. It went Art Schleicher where they threw the ball 40 times a game. Right, because Earl Bruce just got there, and then they had White Lightning, Doug Donnelly, and Gary Williams, and then Mike Tomczak played, and I think I can't even name a receiver from that era, and then Jim Corsados was there with Chris Carter, and you know what I mean, like so Tomczak was like that.
Yeah, how did you miss out on? Yeah. You're right.
I'm surprised not to hear Greg Fry with that sweet helmet, black visor.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I'll be honest. Like I kind of
look at that.
Yeah, I mean he should be in there. And
style, bro.
Oh, yeah.
I was kind of basing it off of like the best. So I kind of like quickly answered that question on the fly. You're right on replay review, Blandino. If I can be Blandino over here. On replay review, I that was a shitty list that I gave you, and it could have been better.
No, dude, Craig Krenzel #1. That's exactly what I expected. That's people even Troy Smith. Troy Smith kind of gets shit on a little bit in today's era, just because C.J. Stroud, Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Even by me, to be honest with you, but
I mean, those guys are good. I don't have nothing against those guys, but it's just. I don't know. I mean, I guess I do have a little bit against them of like, I don't know. I think I like our era better back in the day.
Well, so, the guys that were on your list, like Krenzel, you can point to points. You can point to specific highlights where Craig Krenzel was like, I'm not very good. I guess I'll just do this.
I love that about that, though, was like, he was just like, you could tell that this dude was not like some super athlete, but it was just like, he's going to do what he has to do to win the games.
Yeah,
right. And there's something rewarding in that, when you watch it, you'd be like, hey, I'm an average Joe. I lack athleticism. Yep. This guy's doing what my dreams are, to win a national championship. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Go back and watch that 2003 game against Washington, dude. He's like, they didn't let him throw the ball unless they absolutely had to on a third down. And he probably skied like 8 of them. And there's a play where like the tight end's open in the end zone. You just tell he's like, nah, I've missed every fucking pass. I'm just gonna run this bitch in. He's dragging like 3 dudes, and he gets 2 rushing touchdowns that game. And it's like, bro, you just shit, bro.
If you think back at it though, that game did get him a Sports Illustrated cover that week.
Yeah, dude, I think I still have it.
And that lives forever. That lives forever.
Yeah.
All right.
I know fucking Josh has got it somewhere in that fucking
basement. Dude, for sure. He might even sign it.
Next to the Kathy Ireland one. Right. Well,
we've went over the hour. We're at 2. Honestly, with you, Colby, we could go for another 2 if you wanted to, but we know how busy you are and all the stuff that you got going on, but having you, my first interaction with you, man, I couldn't be happier to have you on. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to meet you, Chris. Josh, always great to see you, man. And I got to have you guys on. We'll talk Ohio State on the experience and have you guys come on, because that would be really cool. And you guys know more about Ohio State than any of us, so that's a leg up. And I appreciate it. And it's just great to talk old school football, man.
Hell yeah, man! Glad to have you on. Thanks a lot.
I mean, I got this prize piece right here, right?
Oh,
I mean,
Look at that.
right,
dude. Ice Cube McNeil was at.
Yeah.
And I had a Baylor helmet for him to sign, and then this was where the baby came out like the day before, so that was not going to happen. But I was like, damn it, it'd be so cool.
You're like, honey, Ice Cube McNeil. Who? Don't they want ice cubes when they're pregnant too? I said ice cubes. Well, I'm gonna get a different ice cube. Ice Cube McNeil.
I did take the baby out. There was an autograph signing with Edric Houston, who's the 5-star defensive tackle for Ohio State, and I was like, well, no one's gonna be there. This will be a good first photo, like of him with his first athlete. So it's just it's me, the baby, just 3 weeks old, just came to lift its head, and then a 6'6" black dude. It's gonna be a good story to explain later on down the line.
Hey man, well, congrats on that though, man. Yeah. I know that's great, man. I know you're gonna be a great dad, man. And it's a unique feeling. I'm already trying to, my son's only one. He's like 14 months old, and I'm already trying to break him into football. I even got the magnetic old football. Field thing going. What is that called? Electronic football. I got that going. He's getting schooled. He's getting schooled with the old school stuff, man. But no, appreciate you guys letting me come on your show and hijack it. Sorry it ran so late.
Dude, had a blast, man. Had a blast every time, bro.
Hey, everybody that's on, hey, thanks for sticking around with us. You know where to find me and Josh. But for Colby, if you've been living under a rock, he is at the College Experience. You can find him right here on YouTube. You got all of his links. You've got, you got X, you've got a Spotify link, all that. College Basketball Experience as well. Be sure, if you don't already, I'm certain you already do, give them a like, give them a follow, give them a subscribe. But hey, honestly, thanks for coming on. We'd love to have you back on. We'll take you up on it one lonely rainy day where you've got nothing to fill. We'll come on and talk some Ohio State for you. And
bring your brother on, bro. Bring NC Nick on.
Okay, there we go. I mean, we're in. Ohio State's in high demand, obviously, after the year they just had. So we got to have. We're gonna trade shows. All right, we're gonna trade shows. Let's go.
Looking forward to it, brother.
We're making like Human Centipede.
My favorite movie.
Oh man,
weird enough that's not the first time I've heard a Human Centipede reference today.
Is that right?
Oh my gosh!
And it's Monday. Yeah.
Okay.
But for the Ohio State of Mind podcast, I'm Chris. Josh, he's here as always. Our special guest, Colby Dant. Thank you again. We will see you all again next Monday, and go Bucks.